Well, a very good morning to you. I was going to say it's good being back, but it was a hell of a time getting into Port of Spain this morning. There was some major accident on the Churchill-Roosevelt Highway that stalled traffic, and it still continues to be that way. Hence, all late start on the program this morning. We get on with the action of the day, the business of the day. However, it's Monday, September 12th, 2022. I'm Andy Johnson. Good to see you. Well, I said we're talking in a moment with Mr. Anastasius Guevara about problems plaguing the people in Low Pino, and we will talk with Mr. Rujanal Indar Singh, the Member of Parliament for Couva South, on matters having to do with the situation regarding the Commission of Inquiry into what happened at Paria. And then Mr. Larry Lala, an attorney, talking about matters surrounding the issuance of firearms users licenses in Trinidad and Tobago and the audit that has been done with that. But we go to our first guest now, Mr. Guevara. He's president of the Low Pino Village Council. We're talking about, well, an absence of basic amenities and utilities in that part of the country, water being principal among them. Mr. Guevara, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Well, let's get into the action. I'm seeing you all had planned a protest for Saturday to talk about that thing, and you want to highlight the performance of the Member of Parliament, the Minister for Public Utilities, Marvin Gonzalez. Let's talk about that. So that did take place?
Yeah, well, we had to do that because just recently, about 3 months ago, they installed a new water supply for us. It was on TV, as you all know, like a program, you know, this with a host of PNM supporters who was invited into the official opening to make him look good. I do have a problem with our minister looking good, but do things properly for the people at Low Pino. For years now, they have been doing Low Pino that because it's a PNM stronghold and they tend to do what they want and get away with it. And the water supply is really worse now than before. You could come and run a census in Low Pino and go house to house. Once they're honest to themselves, they will tell you that it's worse than before.
Yeah, so when you say
it's over $3 million is spent to upgrade the water system. Now we're using it from the river. We had it before from a ravine, and now it's from the river, and it's worse. So that's the problem we have, and we just, you know, identify it, like how we say, you know, in a week advance that we are going to protest for water. You know, before we plan, we protest, he didn't know it already, so I feel he's a miniature God, because we plan, we protest about 2 days before the annual sports what they kept.
So
I don't know how we had that information. You know, before I know it, he know it. I don't know how that happened. Yeah.
So what do you expect to come out of it? So has he met with you all substantively on addressing the issue?
You see, I got blacklisted before the pandemic. Our roads, which is road and water, we highlighted. We have a whole lot of issues there. But I did two main issues. And I come together with the villagers in Low Pino. I went house to house on evenings after work, like from 6 to about 10 in the night. I go in house to house collecting money from villagers to repair the road. I got over $15,000 and used it on the road to patch holes. And since that, the minister blacklisted me. I don't know for whatever reason. Well, his diehard supporters, who is the village, because Low Pino have two village councils. You see, I didn't highlight anything about the village council, because that wasn't the time and place for that. We were talking about the road and water.
You say
and the minister himself chose to highlight the village council because he working.
You say there are two village councils? All right, but let's stay with us. We will be back in a moment, trying to sort some technical issues here. We're going to take a break and come back.
The Guide family has been serving TNT for over 80 years. JE Guide Funeral Home and Crematorium, 2 locations, San Fernando and Princestown. You can become a highly trained emergency response professional that can operate in the health, corporate, industrial, and educational sectors. Tech EMS courses include EMT, AEMT, paramedic, BLS, ACLS, PALS, first aid, CPR, AED, and other courses. Register early for September 2022.
Chantwell Vibes, a musical tribute to Andre Tanker, Saturday, September 24th, 2022, Central Bank Auditorium. Showtime, 7:30 p.m. Featuring Three Canal, Mavis John, Ataclan, Empress Ajay, Stacy Sobers, and panist Natasha Joseph. Tickets, $300. Available at Crosby's Music Center, St. James. Extra Foods, Arima, Grand Bazaar, and Endeavour. Online at Island E-Tickets. Committee members at 678-2843 or 482-3111. Central Bank box office on the day of the event. Mart's Liquor Palace, Diego Marte Main Road, La Puerta. A musical tribute to Andre Tanker. Saturday, September 24th, 2022. Central Bank Auditorium. Showtime, 7:30 p.m.
All right, welcome back to the program. We continue to have some technical difficulties with our communication with Mr. Anastasius Guevara up there in Lopino. I want to ask you, so I'm seeing here that the Minister of Public Utilities, Minister Gonzalez, accused some of you all of creating mischief with lies and misrepresentation. You want to speak to that?
I'm hearing to properly.
I'm saying that the minister is reported to be accusing some of you of purporting lies and misrepresentation of what the situation is. If you want to speak to that.
See what's going on with internet service up here so poor. So, the services are coming and going. Guys, all these problems we see, and no one wants to rectify our problems. You know, because everything now is Zoom and online classes and things. And look, right now I could barely hear what you say to answer the question. So imagine what children and Lupino will be going through to further their studies and things. It's really difficult, and the people in authority not addressing that people Lupino. And with the kind of person I love my village so much, I'm trying to step forward and want things to happen. And because of that, I'm being blacklisted by the minister. Yeah.
Well, he is accusing some of you. I imagine you are in that. He's accusing some of you of spreading.
Yes, accusing me, yes.
Go ahead.
Of being a notorious, you see, he bringing gang into Lupino too. I don't know what. A notorious gang, that's about 10 people. That is the minister, a man with so much intelligence and who want to rule. But I don't know how they want to rule. You know, he never come and once I had a Zoom meeting with him, and since that was after we fixed the road. But since that is a blacklist. And the people who look talking about this same village council, it's today, 5 p.m. we have been a meeting this afternoon with Branch Association of Village Councils and the community development to finalize this problem we have. It's a serious problem, and he's pushing himself into that and all. Because the president of the village council, who he's saying is who he came to be the president of the village council, is his secretary in office, in his parliamentary office. So I don't know how it can work, how it will work, because you see when I done up all the issues and things, I still brought her across to say something on behalf of the community. And if you step back on what she says, she picking up the minister, she will never say that against the minister because she's job at risk. So she's not representing the community 100%. And that is the problem that I am having presently, you know. You cannot run a community council by a party group.
All right, we're gonna have to leave it there, Mr. Gonzalez. I think we get a sense, Mr. Guevara. I think we get a sense of what the situation is and what you're saying, but also we are being affected with the absence of the proper communication between us.
Well,
and you're saying
all
that.
We have an minister who will address those things.
Yeah. All right, we will try and see how we could fix things from our end so that we can
also
communicate better with you.
And
All right.
because they have a lot of problems to highlight.
All right. All right, thank you very much. We will work on trying to get a better line of communication with you all up there in Lopino. But let's switch directly now to the Newsday poll this morning. I'll tell you what the question is. What are your thoughts on the proposed introduction of a lower secondary school certification program? And here are some of the responses. It is a good idea to allow kids to work towards something earlier. However, we need to try to keep young people in our schools as long as we can. And that is where the effort needs to go. There's evidence all around the world that high dropout rates are linked to high crime. A focus here is necessary. That's one response. Another response? This is just like when a tree was made a path to get, well, this kind of language is difficult to read, but we're going to be going down the road together to facility party hacks. We have the question of language here. Let's put up the other response. Skilled trades are good. We all need a good electrician, a plumber, a carpenter, a landscaper. Some are just better with their hands. In Germany, there's the master craftsman, similar weight to a doctor, engineer, or lawyer. And the last response, craftsman, well, we need to place less emphasis on exams. We are becoming too exam-oriented, and it doesn't help us at all. Well, those are the responses to the question in the Newsday. What are your thoughts on the proposed introduction of a lower secondary school certification program? I think what is being talked about is a return to what used to be the case when I was in primary school. You had a school leaving certificate that you wrote when you went to post-primary if you didn't make it through the common entrance exam. That's my understanding of what is proposed. We will get to Attorney Larry Lalo. On the other side of this break, we're talking the transparency involved in the issuance of firearms users licenses. And I think we'll skip the break. We'll go directly to Mr. Lala this morning. Good morning, Mr. Lala. Hello, Larry. Well, you're not hearing either. Well, you're not hearing. You're not responding, so I can see you responding. Can you fix your mic, Mr. Larry? I mean, Mr. Lala, you might be muted.
No, I'm not muted.
But I'm hearing you now.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get in on the discussion. And good to see you. So you're calling on the Office of the Attorney General to provide information on the team which did the report on the audit of the firearms users license. Can we call it a controversy?
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's a controversy. The whole issue with the firearm users license, of course, you know, it's a hot topic. But we have made a request for information, and we expect that request to be honored because we are at the pre-action stage, Andy, and the law is clear as to the obligations of parties when a matter is at the pre-action stage. Pre-action stage meaning it's getting ready to go to court, and having regard to the type of matter that it is, there's an obligation on the state to provide information once requested. So it's not just the names of the persons who conducted the audit into the firearm users license issue, but we really want to understand, you know, on what authority were they appointed, because you and I know, and I'm sure members of the public would understand, that the Prime Minister, the Office of the Prime Minister, maybe even the National Security Council, if you want to go so far, they don't really have the power to investigate anything. You know, the power lies with the police. So we want to know on what authority was this body of persons appointed to conduct this audit. And further information, you know, like when the audit was completed, who the audit report was sent to, et cetera, so that we could understand what are the issues. Is it today or tomorrow? It should be today, Monday the 12th. That was the notice that was issued, the proclamation that was issued.
Yes.
So he intended to lay, sorry, Andy?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, he intended to lay the executive summary of the audit report, and we wrote him, and they said that, look, Prime Minister, you can't do that because the main subject of this audit report is necessarily Mr. Griffith, he being the last substantive person to occupy the post of Commissioner of Police. And no one has ever contacted Mr. Griffith to explain to him their findings and to get his feedback on the findings. And that is one of the basic and most fundamental principles, Andy, of natural justice. If an employer is looking into any aspect of a job performed by anyone, before any report is completed, you have to go to the person who was in charge of the particular section, and you have to get their feedback on what you found before you could say you have completed your report. So we objected to him laying the executive summary in the Parliament because of total failure of natural justice in relation to Mr. Griffith. And rightly, the attorney, through the Office of the Attorney General, they conceded that our position was correct, and he decided, and he made a right decision to not to lay the executive summary in Parliament, and they have indicated that they intend to consider, they haven't told us exactly what yet, but they intend to consider adopting other steps to ensure that Mr. Griffith has natural justice. We don't know what form those other steps would take just yet, and we're not sure what our position will be on those other steps. So we'll have to see as we go forward what they intend to do, and then we will decide what our position is on it or on them as far as the law is concerned.
So what is the situation this morning? That your sense is that that is not going to happen, that the report, the executive summary would not be laid in the Parliament?
Well, it's not only my sense. The Attorney General has indicated through his office that it will not be laid.
Yeah. Just
yet. I mean, they still have an intention to lay it at some time in the future. But for now, it is not going to be laid. So, I mean, of course, I'll be very surprised if the Prime Minister decides to go behind what his Attorney General and the Office of the Attorney General has indicated to us. I mean, I don't foresee that happening.
Yeah.
So for now, it is not going to be.
But it's still material in the case that you all want to know who comprised the team that conducted the audit.
Yeah, I mean, that is just the first issue. Separate and apart from that, Andy, is on what authority were they appointed to do this audit? You know, that is a very, very important issue.
Right.
And we need to understand that to understand whether there was legitimacy in the conducting of this audit in the first place.
Yeah, so I wanted to take it step by step. So right. And therefore, when on what authority, who appointed them, on what basis, and what were the terms of reference and so on?
Because, I mean, I don't know of any authority. I mean, I don't know whether you know of any authority that permits the Prime Minister to investigate anything or to select investigators for investigating anything. Certainly there is no law that allows the National Security Council to do that. And we know that this particular audit was not ordered by the Police Service Commission, which is the body that governs discipline in the police service. So we're trying to understand by whose authority was this audit ordered, and what is the legitimacy of the conduct of this audit.
And until that, and even if you get to find out that this exercise gets to find out that, to some extent, what is being suggested here is that the authenticity and the legitimacy and the authority of the report itself could be brought into question, and therefore it may fail to see the light of day. Absolutely,
that is precisely the point that I'm getting at.
Yeah.
You know, because at the end of the day, we're still in a democracy, Andy. We're still governed by a constitution. The police service is part of the public service. There is a particular way, a particular method set up in the constitution as to the way investigations into the police service is to be conducted. And if that method has not been employed, then whatever has been done that is not in accordance with the Constitution lacks what we call in law vires. It lacks authority, it lacks legitimacy. And if that is the case, then, it has to fall by the wayside. But I'm not prejudging the issue. I'm waiting for myself and Mr. Avery Sinanan, Senior Counsel, who leads me in the matter. We're not prejudging the issue. We're waiting to see, first of all, whether the information we have properly requested will be supplied. And when it is supplied, we'll see what they say. And then we'll decide what is going to be the next step. Because it is in no interest for anyone for things to be done which are not in accordance with the law. Regardless of how we may feel about the issue of firearms and the issue of and persons getting firearms legally, etc., etc.
Yeah, can I ask, let's go back to the genesis of this action and how it came about, who called for it, and what
Well, that is a very interesting question. And let me explain it this way to you and your viewing audience. You will recall that when the merit list was sent to the president all the way in 2021, August of 2021, and the merit list on which Mr. Gary Griffith was listed as the #1 candidate for appointment to the Office of Commissioner of Police. That merit list was surreptitiously withdrawn from the Office of the President. I know of no authority in law which allowed the list to be withdrawn from the Office of the President once it was deposited, but it was withdrawn. It is the belief that it was withdrawn on the basis of some report into the issue of firearms that was done by former officers, I believe, of the regiment or Coast Guard, Barrington and Pritchard. We have written the Police Service Commission and say, look, we have heard of this. Can we have a copy of that report by Barrington and Pritchard that
Yeah, all right. We will take a break and come back in a moment. Stay with us.
Celebrate and enjoy your life with a fully electric or hybrid Mini. Now available at LaFast Motors, Port of Spain or San Fernando. We make sure you're safe to drive. Motor Care and Maintenance, MCM Limited, for all your vehicle repairs, diesel and gas. Approved inspection station.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order or visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
Welcome back to the program. Let's tell you just before we get to 7 o'clock over here on this Monday morning. Take a quick look around the region. We want to begin with this story from Guyana and Suriname. They say officials are expected to meet this week sometime to address some serious matters between the both neighboring countries. Let's take a look at that from News Source Guyana.
Guyana's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Hugh Toll, is expected to meet with his Surinamese counterpart Albert Ramdin within the next 2 weeks to follow up on a recent agreement signed between the two countries and also discuss the issue of fishing license for Guyanese fisherfolk. President Irfan Ali told reporters on Wednesday that the matter with the delay in the issuance of fishing license to Guyanese fisherfolk by the Surinamese authorities is being addressed.
That matter is being resolved as I speak to you. We have agreed that a high-level meeting will take place within the next 2 weeks to not only look at the current issues, because the current issues, we have the full commitment that the current issues will be resolved, but look at the issues in terms of the license itself and how we address that moving forward and in the long term. There are some concerns from their side. We have made our case very clear. They've given all the data. So I'm pleased at the efforts that were made in the last 24 hours to address the immediate concerns in terms of the vessels that were kept there.
The president added that he is pleased that the immediate issue of Guyanese fishing boats not being able to leave Suriname will be addressed. And he said he's looking forward to the meeting between the high-level officials of the two neighboring states. Earlier this week, the Guyana government issued a statement condemning the continued harassment being meted out to Guyanese fisherfolk by the Surinamese government. In a statement, the government also called out the government of Suriname over its failure to grant license to Guyanese fishermen in keeping with the commitment made by Suriname almost 2 years ago. The Guyana government had requested that 150 Surinamese licenses be issued to Guyanese fishermen to allow them to ply their trade in Surinamese ocean waters. The government said that to date it has not been advised on the status of the issuance of the license. It noted that in the absence of the issuance of the license, Guyanese fisherfolk continue to face harassment at the hands of the Surinamese authorities, including fishing vessels that are stranded in Suriname and cannot return to Guyana for fear of losing their license.
Well, to Barbados now, where we are told that 2 local charities are reporting a drastic increase in the number of parents seeking help to get their children ready for the new school year, which is set to begin in 2 weeks. Let's take a look.
This year we saw an increase of over 400 odd children and families, less fortunate families, being assisted from the trust to the back to school program. That number has increased dramatically, and we are pleading to corporate Barbados for your assistance. A little goes a long way. It might be a little to us, but it might be a big something to families who cannot afford it and those less fortunate.
We needed the sheer numbers this year. We've needed extra support. The Eden Lodge Charitable Trust, their increase in the requests for uniforms and support and lunches, back to school lunches, etc., has been huge this year. It's been increased threefold. And that's obviously as a result of the dreaded pandemic, which we feel like we're coming out of, but there's an awful lot of families. And we know that because we get a lot of phone calls weekly of people still needing help. So I'm thrilled today because we're with all these new partners, which is great to see new people on board. I'm sorry in a way because everybody needs the extra support, but at least the corporate Barbados is back out in force helping all of those families and children who are still in dire need. Our contribution to the Eden Lodge in total per annum is over $250,000 a year. We split it into different categories, and back to school is one of the categories that we look after. We look after Christmas, back to school lunches, and helping home help. Basically helping the underprivileged children of Barbados.
All right, so as we head up to 7 o'clock, let's just tell you a couple of things happening this morning on the agenda. Let me just show you the front page of the Newsday Trinidad and Tobago this morning, and that is it. Let's tell you what you're seeing there. The building, the Tattle building on Maraval Road in Port of Spain, was lit in purple as a sign of respect for Queen Elizabeth II, who died on the 10th of September. And lots happening in the UK today with the transfer of authority from the Queen to her son Charles, and then in preparations for her burial after all these years as the sovereign in England, in its territories, and in the Commonwealth of which Trinidad and Tobago is a member. But there's also a big story you would have seen on the bottom of the page there. Well, breaking in Trinidad and Tobago, what seems to be the unraveling to some extent of the great party that is the PDP, the Progressive Democratic Patriots. This headline is somebody's suggestion to Mr. Augustine to tell Duke sorry, because Mr. Duke has now had an issue with Mr. Augustine about some matters prosecuting the public arrangements and the management of the Tobago House of Assembly. And he's being asked, this is Mr. Augustine, apologize publicly to Duke. And the story sort of highlights and puts a spotlight on a lady called Kezel Jackson. And she is the deputy for the PDP in Trinidad. How many of us knew that the PDP had a part of its infrastructure, its administrative infrastructure in Trinidad? Kezel Jackson is the PDP deputy for Trinidad. In a Facebook video on Saturday, she reminded Mr. Augustine not to cut off the hand that gave him the crown, or bite the hand that fed him, is how people would have said it in another generation. And the PDP, which boasts 14-1 a majority in the big House of Assembly, launched the Trinidad arm of the party in May this year. And Mr. Duke had promised to contest all elections in Trinidad and has been in several communities in Trinidad campaigning for that support. So Ms. Jackson is advising Mr. Augustine to tread lightly in this, what appears now to be this row between himself and the leader. So lots of interesting stuff there to pay attention to. What is becoming of the solidarity at the top of the leadership of this party that has taken control in that massive way at the Tobago House of Assembly, with Mr. Duke wanting to make his foray into neighborhoods and constituencies and communities in Trinidad. So it's an interesting set of developments to watch there. But we will take a break at this point. On the other side of that, we're talking with MP Rudranath Indar Singh on some other issues on the Trinidad side of the discussions now in Trinidad and Tobago on this Monday morning. Stay with us. The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect
a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Site, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix-It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix-It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
Talking to Dr. Michelle Khan. She's a health and wellness coach. What your practice entails, what it means to be a health coach, what kind of patients do you see, and what does this practice involve?
Healthcare to me is very holistic. It definitely takes place in the doctor's office, but how you maintain that is what you do at home. What is the energy within your body? What are your beliefs about your health and wellness?
With me now I have Karen Forbes, another member of the senior women's national football team. What's up, Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit? Yes. What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole. It's for all of us in public.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white, and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Shantwell Vibes, a musical tribute to Andre Tanker, Saturday, September 24th, 2022, Central Bank Auditorium. Showtime, 7:30 p.m. Featuring 3 Canal, Mavis John, Ataclan, Empress Ajay, Stacy Sobers, and panist Natasha Joseph. Tickets, $300. Available at Crosby's Music Center, St. James. Extra Foods, Arima, Grand Bazaar, and Endeavour. Online at Island E-Tickets. Committee members at 678-2843 or 482-3111. Central Bank box office on the day of the event. Mart's Liquor Palace, Diego Martin Main Road, La Puerta. A musical tribute to Andre Tanker. Saturday, September 24th, 2022. Central Bank Auditorium. Showtime, 7:30 p.m.
Welcome back to the program. We're talking now with the Member of Parliament for Kuvu South, Rujanath Indar Singh. He's a former minister in the Ministry of Labour. He's a former head of the union representing sugar workers, the Old Trinidad Sugar and General Workers Union. He's talking about the first hearing of the commission at the International Waterfront Centre in Port. It's been the commission that has been appointed to look into what we call the Paria tragedy. He's asking some questions about it. Good morning, my friend. Good to see you, comrade. Okay. So something is going on because you're not hearing me. Yeah. Okay. So this is better. So let's get into the discussion. You want to get some answers about the conduct of business by this commission of inquiry that is set up. That was set up to look into the circumstances of what turned out to be this disaster with the Paria company and the divers.
Yes, Andy. A pleasant good morning to you. And of course, we must never forget that there were issues with this, the government's approach to this commission of inquiry from its early stages. We must never forget that the government had put a member by the name of one Eugene T, and it was the opposition led by our leader, Kamla Prasad Bisesa, who called out the government on the issue of conflict of interest and this individual having links with the Minister of Energy and Energy Affairs in a judicial matter and so on. And it was from there that the government displayed its lack of willingness, if I should say, to approach this matter in a very serious way, because we was never forget that the Prime Minister was the one who initially chastised the opposition for calling for a commission of inquiry, and he had to turn around and resort to the same UNC suggestion. And after 100 and I think today is 189 days, the government's approach has not changed. Because if after 189 days you cannot allocate resources in a timely manner for the commission to operate in an efficient manner, then it says something about the government's approach, and the blame has to be apportioned to the Prime Minister, because at the end of the day, commissions of inquiry under the Gazette, and it can be researched and it can be fact-checked, falls under the office of the Prime Minister. And this is a government who spent $7.5 million behind fireworks for the country's Independence Day. Not on roads, not on social services, not on books and so on, for the well-being of children. And we have to ask ourselves, why could not resources be apportioned for internet and stationery and the provision of officery? I think that he would not have had the opportunity to speak in the Parliament to give this statement that is not that the Commission cannot work because it did not get resources, but then that the Commission couldn't work because they did not get enough. And I am forced to ask the question here this morning. If you cannot get resources for stationery, you cannot get resources for internet recruitment of staff, because up till today we do not know how many staff has to be recruited for the work of this commission. What is the deadline for the recruitment of these staff members? Where their salaries will come from? We have been told that the hyperbaric chamber is now on the seabed. I do not know. I am not an expert in deep sea diving and what will be needed in terms of for members of the commission and for lawyers and so on, probably to do their work and come to their conclusions and so on in terms of the arguments which they will put forward before the commissioners and the answers that they may seek. What kind of resources will be apportioned for all and sundry who will go before this commission of inquiry to be able to view this hyperbaric chamber, which is now on the seabed? That is a fundamental question for me, the opposition, and I think the families of the deceased divers, and also the lone survivor, Christopher Bodram.
All right, but to the best of your understanding now, you think that those sort of elementary hurdles have been crossed with stationery and staff and proper office space and so on? You think that, and furniture, you think that is in place now?
Well, the minister in the House of Representatives came and he said that resources were being apportioned, and we asked that could he give a commitment that there will be no further delays to the commencement of the work of the Commission of Inquiry. And he was not definitive in his pronouncements on behalf of the government. And as I said, we do not still know how many staff members are to be recruited, where the salaries will come from. And at the end of the day, too, the office spaces was not very clear in terms of the answers that was provided by the Minister of Communications on behalf of the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And it is critical to note also that the chairman of the Commission of Inquiry did indicate, because the families of two of the deceased divers and the lone survivor, Christopher Bodram, had written to the commissioners or the commission seeking support as it relates to the provision of legal services. The chairman of the commission has pronounced that this is not the responsibility of the commission, and he did indicate that those parties should seek assistance from the Office of the Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago. And this in itself also, for me, says something in relation to how the Attorney General has gone about its pronouncement as it relates to the status of this Commission of Inquiry. We are still uncertain whether the Attorney General is aware of his role and function within the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago, because when he was questioned by reporters as it relates to the pronouncements of the chairman of the Commission of Inquiry, the Attorney General, who is the legal advisor to the Cabinet, who is the second highest office holder in Trinidad and Tobago in the context of the workings of the Cabinet, because a Cabinet cannot be convened if there's not a Prime Minister and an Attorney General. The Attorney General indicated that it was the responsibility not of the government to fund and to resource the commission. It was the responsibility of the Office of the Her Excellency, the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. And in an unusual but very swift response, the Her Excellency's office issued a media release rebuking. I think you will go down in history as the only Attorney General in Trinidad and Tobago to be rebuked by the Office of the President, where he was told that it was not the responsibility of the Office of the President to resource the Commission of Inquiry. And any law student who is familiar with the Constitution, who is familiar with the readings of the Trinidad and Tobago Gazette and so on, could have advised the Attorney General that it is the responsibility of the Office of the Prime Minister to resource the Commission of Inquiry. And I think that this in itself continues to show the lack of focus and lack of depth on the part of the Attorney General, who is supposed to, at one point in time, status from a legal point of view, is a senior counsel. He told a court in Miami that he was a junior counsel and so on. So his work as it relates to this commission of inquiry still needs to be clarified in terms of his understanding of his role in the cabinet, because he also attempted not only to throw Her Excellency under the bus, but the legal advisor, if I should use that phrase, to the commission in the person of Senior Counsel Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj, where he attempted to point the blame in the direction to say that it's the responsibility of Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj, Senior Counsel, that the commission was not given the appropriate resources, the tools to carry out their work and to ensure a timely commencement of the work of the commission.
So you mean, so the Attorney General was also saying that laying the blame, if we would call it that, as to what transpired or didn't transpire, onto the shoulders of Mr. Maharaj?
Well, he pointed in two directions, Mr. Maharaj and also the Office of Her Excellency, the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. And as I said, if indeed the Attorney General, based on his pronouncement, is not familiar with the Gazette of Trinidad and Tobago and the different offices and institutions which fall under members of cabinet in terms of the functioning of the government of Trinidad and Tobago, then we are indeed in a very sad state, because I think that also the Attorney General, being the legal advisor to the cabinet of the country and to the government of Trinidad and Tobago, should be the first one to really apprise himself of all the issues in relation to the functioning of this commission of inquiry, and to ensure that not only the government is properly advised, but the families of the deceased, and indeed the lone survivor, Christopher Budram, who are all seeking that sense of fair play, justice, and equality. He must be the one who must be prepared to uphold the rule of law, fairness, and equity from a judicial point of view also.
All right. In a previous discussion this morning, we were talking with Mr. Larry Lal about this another commission, and he made it clear that commissions of inquiry are sort of the express preserve of the office of the Prime Minister and of the Prime Minister, so that somebody in the office of the Prime Minister, whether it may be the Permanent Secretary, sort of be the person then with the challenge to make these things happen in the way that they should. So when something like this comes out, you say that from how you see it, it looks like an attempt at deliberate frustration. But these things are even below elementary, and they should not be happening. I mean, we've become experts at establishing commissions of inquiry in this country for decades. How would this now appear as though, well, we're not sure what we're doing?
Well, as I said, and I continue, and my position and that of the opposition's position is that it is the Prime Minister who, on the 8th of March 2022, made the pronouncement as it relates to the Commission of Inquiry, the establishment of the Commission of Inquiry. And from a governmental point of view, he is the head of the government of Trinidad and Tobago, and he also, the Prime Minister, you might want to say that the Prime Minister should not get into the nitty-gritty of day-to-day issues and so on. But at the end of the day, this was a national tragedy that occurred at a state entity, Paria, which has a board of directors appointed by the cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago, and a national tragedy of this proportion, unprecedented in terms of the accident and the number of deaths and so on. And it is the responsibility of the government of Trinidad and Tobago to follow through. The Prime Minister has two or three, but I think he has at least two ministers operating out of the office of the Prime Minister. and it is the government's responsibility to liaise with the permanent secretaries and so on within the framework of the Office of the Prime Minister to ensure that whatever allegations or conclusion of state-sanctioned murder and what transpired out at Paris and a lack of empathy and a lack of understanding from day one, if the government wants to close the door and bring clarity to this particular incident, unfortunate incident, I think that the government should be committed from day one to ensure that there are no obstacles, that there are no stumbling blocks as it relates to the work of the Commission of Inquiry. And if it was left to the chairman of the Commission of Inquiry to lament the sad state of affairs, it was a dark day in our history. And if you can recollect, Andy, last Thursday, I'm trying to recollect the exact date, but the three national newspapers, their headlines, the respective front pages focus on the embarrassment and the inability and the incompetence of the government to get this Commission of Inquiry off to a flying start.
Yeah, well, I was entirely out of the country last week and sort of I'm deliberately cut off from current affairs developments and so on, so I would have missed that. But you know, sometimes we have these pearls of wisdom that are sometimes contradictory. In this case, that's the question. So we have one of the things we live by, which says that a bad beginning makes a good ending. But on the opposite side of that, we are also told that what's gone bad in the morning can come good in the evening. I'm wondering which one of them will apply in this case here.
Well, I mean, based on the track record of this government in terms of their incompetence, their bungling of affairs and so on, I hope they can get their act together as it relates to the work of the Commission of Inquiry and in the interest of the families of the 4 deceased divers and also the lone survivor, Christopher Boudram, and in the context of also the work environment, the health and safety environment in Trinidad and Tobago, and standards that should be adhered to, not only in the energy sector, but throughout the work environment of this country. I think that is the fundamental issue facing the commissioners and the work of the Commission of Inquiry at its conclusion. From where we sit, from an opposition's point of view, we would want the Commission of Inquiry to get off the ground and to work in the interest of all stakeholders, because only yesterday, and yeah, I'm sure that you would have followed this particular story too, that there was an article in the Express newspaper that the Nikon plant on the Pointe-a-Pierre compound will restart. I think that after 18 months or so, there was a massive explosion that rocked not only the community of Marabella and Pointe-a-Pierre, but it was felt as far as Couva and so on. I, being a member of Parliament for Couva South, when that explosion occurred, I got calls from constituents and so on that said morning. But more importantly, we are reading after 18 months that the Ministry of Energy and Energy Affairs, the ministry has given the clearance for the recommencement or starting up of the plant. But we have not been privy to the reports as it relates to what were the findings, what were the recommendations, and so on. And there was a commitment from the government of Trinidad and Tobago to lay this report to make sure that it was public and for the benefit of all stakeholders. And I think especially the community of Marabella, the community of Bateau Avenue, which was highlighted by my colleague, the Member of Parliament for Pointe-a-Pierre, Dr. David Lee, in the UNC's Sunday morning press conference yesterday. And more critically too, we must never forget that this was a workplace accident, and there was the intervention of the Occupational Safety and Health Authority based on the law, based on the Occupational Safety and Health Act.
Yeah, and there's at least one people's organization, I think the Southerners sort of community organization coming out of that, the Steel Orchestra with that name, who had said that the plant should not be restarted without proper consultation and collaboration with people in the community. We don't know if that has happened.
And this is the point here. This morning that I am reiterating, I am embellishing the call that was made by my parliamentary colleague, Dr. David Lee, yesterday morning at our press conference. And I am, in addition to the call that he made on behalf of the opposition, I am also making a call on to the Minister of Energy and Energy Affairs. And in addition to the Minister of Energy and Energy Affairs, Stuart Young, I'm calling on the Minister of Labour, Stephen McClatchy, to pronounce on where is the report of the Occupational Safety and Health Agency into this particular explosion.
All right, we're gonna have to leave it there. Let's see what comes out of it. We're gonna have to leave it there. But thank you very much. We continue to follow these developments as they break around.
Thank you very
much. Thank you very much, Rudy Narsingh, on that question. We want to leave you with these images and these voices. This is Prince Charles, now become King Charles III, making his declaration at the St. James's Palace in London on Saturday. He was formally invested with this title.
I shall strive to follow the inspiring example I have been set, and in carrying out the heavy task that has been laid upon me, and to which I now dedicate what remains to me of my life, I pray for the guidance and help of Almighty God.
And that's our broadcast for this Monday morning. We want to thank you for watching. We want to thank our guests. We tell you that in half an hour, we'll have news at the top of the hour, followed by today's edition of Talking Point. But for now, I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
WESN. Shantwell